Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Shaman in the Garden with me, Faye Johnston, here to inspire you with insights from the shamanic path, the earth seasons and cycles, the power of plants, and the beauty of nature to help you awaken your inner wisdom and feel supported by the web of life. The special guest that is joining me this week is Emma Pruen, and Emma is a transpersonal coach and fellow shamanic practitioner with over 30 years' experience in the field of human potential. Her shamanic work focuses on those hidden threads that connect our current challenges to our ancestral path. And it is this ancestral calling that nudged Emma out of a career in politics to follow this shamanic path. And together with her late husband, Matthew, she founded the French Retreat, a renowned center for personal growth near Bordeaux in France. And her current project is this new, lovely, wonderful book, which is How We Are Connected. The book Wild Self, 350 Transformational Nature Experiences in Britain, which is out now. So welcome, Emma. I'm so delighted to be having this conversation with you.
Oh, well, hi, and thank you for having me.
So where I really want to dive into, you have a wealth of experience, and I really want to know, the nudge, what nudges us from, shall we say, normal careers that are in office environments that are, structured around meetings and emails and time pressures. And suddenly we're called by the ancestors. Suddenly we kind of connect to the land and you're feeling those threads of connection. So can you just take us back to what really led you onto this path?
My very first job out of university, trying to be a grown-up, trying to be a good girl, do fulfill my parental ambitions. I got a very respectable job at Marks and Spencer's as a buyer. You know, like everybody thinks that's, great, very
You
impressive.
tick the box. That's
Yeah.
tick, isn't it? Wow.
Tick. And I thought that'll get everybody off my back. Problem was that one, I was miserable and hated it. But I thought, well, that goes with the territory. But then I started getting ill and really specifically ill. Like I would go to work, go to the loo and throw up, come back in, say to my boss, I'm really sorry, I've just been sick. She'd go home, be home, cup of coffee. Oh, I'm feeling fine now. Ring up a friend, go out for lunch, have a lovely day out, go into work the next day. Same thing would happen. Or I started getting covered with ex-Marie things, or this just went on and on. And I mean, it took a while for the universe to kind of slap me around the face enough to realize this wasn't for me. But, it's not. It wasn't. And luckily for me, some people have a very slow decline where they just feel less and less life force and just under the weather. For me, it was so clear. I just thought, I can't do this. This will actually kill me if I stay in a corporate job.
So how did you take the leap then? What
I
did
met a rather amazing woman who's now in her mid 80s, who sort of introduced me to, I suppose, other dimensions. I mean, people, I suspect, thought she was a bit bonkers, but for me, she touched me in some way, and I thought she knows something. And she lived a kind of full and magical life. I mean, I think she'd sort of dined with Onassis when she was young and a dancer and, very glamorous. But in later life, she could talk to the nature spirits at the end of the garden and would say, oh, and I spoke to this bird this morning. And it said, didn't say anything very clever. It was quite a lot of rubbish. And so I was sort of had my eyes open to just a completely alternate reality. And thank goodness she was sort of something of a mentor and started sort of pushing me just very gently, sometimes firmer, but towards sort of self-exploration. And as with my book, really, I just hope to nudge people onto that first step of something else, because usually once, I'm sure you found this too, once we sort of start something, our imagination gets captured somewhere and we think, oh, maybe I'll do this thing this weekend, or maybe I'll go and do that, or I really like this woman, she's doing the other. And once you're sort of on your path, then I think we all get kind of reeled in gently and do a training, and then suddenly find that we have to teach it, or people start asking us to teach it, and then off we go.
yeah, having said, no, 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 I'm not going to teach this. No, 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 I'm just going to do this. And then suddenly, yeah, you're
Yeah.
running a workshop.
Mm.
I know that one for
Yeah.
sure. So, are there any specific experiences from that? I mean, that sounds really magical. Like, it almost sounds like a bit of a dream to meet someone who, like this, especially it being a female, that wise woman figure, to kind of gently nudge you and guide you kind of out of that corporate or that particular job and into something that was perhaps kind of speaking to you in a different way. So, are there any particular experiences that you've had that have really reassured you that this path that you're now on is really meant for you? Yeah, it's actually probably. Can you even think of just the one or two to
My
share?
very first experience with a shamanic practitioner was through a contact from this woman. Then she introduced me to this chap called Foster Perry, and then he introduced me to this lady called Dawn Eagle Woman. And so a group of us went to stay in somebody's flat in Wales, house in Wales, and Dawn Eagle was giving us all sessions, or giving, we were paying for sessions. And she had us all on the, well, individually, one by one, we go in for an afternoon and lie on the dining room table. And she started doing this sort of body work and effectively, for me, started removing armor from my body. It sounds kind of extraordinary, but there was stuff that she could pick up, and in that moment I could definitely feel so like, oh, I've got this pain here. Ow, what's that? What's that? And she'd be like, oh, let me have a look. Oh, yes, you got a dagger in your shoulder. Would you like me to remove it? And I'd be like, yes, yes. She'd do it, and then I'd feel something else. And I remember feeling something around my ankles, and I was like, there's something around my ankles. And I had this picture in my head of being on a cart with my feet up, my head down, somehow being dragged around a town as some trophy of war, some kind of humiliating, I was the loser. This picture came into my head. I said I had something around my ankles. She said, "Oh, do you want me to have a look? Oh, I can do something about that. Do you want me to cut it? Yes, please." So anyway, the session finishes in due course. I'm exhausted, go to bed, get up the next day, finish the little trip to Wales, go back to my husband, got into bed that night, and he said, "Your feet aren't cold." And I was like, "No, they're not." Now, I'd had cold feet my entire childhood, always had to have bed socks, and I've never had cold feet since then. So there was something in that, the blood that had left my feet that I was absolutely carrying. So it wasn't just a sort of extraordinary mystical experience that you think, well, I don't know what that was about. It was really tangible. Something changed in my body. And that for me was like, okay, there's something to this stuff. This isn't just, you know, some kind of bonkers thing. This is to be listened to. So I'm really glad I had that as a start off. When I then discovered the systemic family and systemic constellation stuff, that was easy. There were just so many, one thing after another that affirmed it to me. So,
Let's go back to that. Let's dive into that. Can you
mm,
explain? I think there are some people listening who've got an idea of what shamanic work is. Can you
mm.
explain what exactly it means to what is family constellation work and how does it affect us, and what does that even look like for people? Just give us an idea of that.
I think the first thing to say is that it's absolutely nothing to do with stars or astrology.
It's true. It's kind of misleading, that name. Excellent.
It
Yeah.
is, especially since there are some astrologers that do it, and then that's like, how do you explain that one? So it's called it because if you put out your family in 3D, like that's where my mum stands, that's where my dad is, that's where my sister or brother, whatever, it looks like a constellation. So it was named Constellations for that. It's actually, it was named it by somebody called Bert Hellinger, a German, but more important now, I think, is to attribute to its original source, which comes from Zulu knowledge.
Oh, I
Certainly,
didn't know that
yeah,
part. Okay. Right.
certainly
Thanks.
when I first discovered it and I stepped into it, I thought, I know this energy. This is the same as when I work shamanically. So to me, they've always, been I've held them in the same space. But constellation works with stuff that gets passed down through families, family entanglements. If something terrible happens to your great granny, for instance, that's so completely overwhelming that there's no way for her to process it. I mean, obvious one, which we're seeing a lot being spoken about and cleared now, is sexual assault, and we know there are lots and lots of young people that face that. So, say that happened 100 years ago, and there is just no way that your great granny could have spoken to anybody about it, had any kind of support, had any kind of way to process that trauma, really could only exist by just going, I just have to try and forget about it, push it aside. What seems to happen is it comes up in the next generation.
Mm.
And if the same thing happens, it comes up again. So you know how we can see these threads running through families where there's been an experience that's shared by three generations. Or you hear of families where people will say, gosh, they're so unlucky, the grandfather killed himself and then the uncle killed himself and their son has just made a suicide attempt. How can a family be so unlucky? It's this at work, this thing at work where traumas get passed down because they can't be processed until they land with somebody. And there's lots of people now waking up to this where they go, I'm going to deal with this. I'm the one that can face it. And that's where Constellations comes in, where it helps us look at what's happened in the past, kind of really heal what's happened in the past, which is why it's similar to shamanic work that you can go into the spirit world, do something, and come back, and our current reality has changed. And that's what Constellations does. And the very first time I saw it, my late husband was doing a piece of work, and he hadn't spoken to his sister since the day their father died. And she rang up, spoke to him, and said, and I don't want to speak to any of you ever again. And he was so shocked and couldn't work out why this would be, had no idea. And it absolutely haunted him that maybe his father had done something terrible, and that's what it was, because he was the youngest of the children. So he was certainly the innocent party. And he decided to do a piece of work on this. And he hadn't spoken to his sister for, 10, 15 years. 3 days later, she rang up and said, this is silly. We ought to try and make amends.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's been my experience too of constellations that I've participated in as
Mm,
well. Yeah, and it's I feel so. I want to know. I'd love to know. I mean, everyone listening to this is
mm,
going to be going, "Oh yeah, okay." So there's that thing in my family. There's this pattern because I think I know with shamanic work when and you probably do this too. Just really getting people to look at the patterns of their behavior, the patterns of their
mm,
thoughts. This is this awareness of, oh, hang on, okay, and it's not about kind of blaming anything, but it's about following a thread and
mm,
kind of making that decision of like, you know what, I think I'm going to create a different story for myself and
mm,
my life and my family now.
mm,
And so, what can you share your process? So, if someone's listening to this, goes, "Oh my God, I need to do that."
mm.
Do you work online, Emma, or do you work? Do you like to have people in a room with you? Do you do group work? How is it that you work? Because I've participated in both. I've had
Mm,
individual sessions revealing, deep dark family secrets, all that
mm,
sort of thing. And I've also participated in constellations where we're a
mm.
part of a group. So what do you recommend if someone's really interested? How do you get started?
I I do work online, but I much prefer face to face
Yeah.
because I pick up information through my body and
Aha.
I can just, I can do better work for one. And also, if you get into a room with complete strangers, sit down next to me and say, well, no, make it somebody else, because I might just name something that, is your family story without knowing. I do tend to do that. So a complete stranger comes, sits down next to me and says, I've got this terrible problem with my sister. Oh no, we've just talked about his sister. My mother and I have fallen out,
Hmm.
and Christmas is
That's
coming up,
classic.
and
Yeah.
I've got children, and I kind of want them to have a relationship with their grandmother, but at the same time, I don't want to. I don't want to, have a difficult Christmas. What do I do about it? I need to do something. So I will have a little chat about, tell me your big family stories. Has this theme occurred elsewhere? Have there been other kind of breaks in the family line where people haven't spoken? And they might immediately say, oh, yeah, my great granny never spoke to my granny. But mostly we don't know these stories.
Hmm.
So we'll find what the big things are. And then I will say, choose somebody to represent your mother and you, for instance, and then you sit down. You choose somebody to represent you because this work doesn't work with what we know, it works with what we don't know.
Uh-huh.
So when we get involved, we have these stories about how our mother is and what she needs to understand, and she's a narcissist or whatever it is. Whereas
Yeah, it comes from a place of hurt, doesn't it?
if
Yeah.
it's a complete stranger who gets up, and I haven't allowed the story to be told because I'm like, don't tell me. I just want the facts. Don't tell me your beliefs about it. And if you've got two people that you've never met, I absolutely interacting as you do with your mother, then you're onto a winner. You can start if you've seen it. You go, yep, this is really familiar. Yes, I know this. Then you can trust the process. Whereas if it's just me and some little wooden figures and you online, or me saying, okay, stand somewhere in the room that represents this, or we're doing it that way and I'm interpreting it and I'm a complete stranger, then it's harder for you to trust what I say. Whereas if you know the work, so that's why I like doing it face to face. There are people that do it online. There are some people that train only online, and I don't really know how that works. That seems very odd to me. But I mean, I have done some very effective work online, but I prefer face to face.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's incredibly powerful actually for everybody involved in because it's all about like the power of the field, isn't it? And even if you're sort of, if you like, in a constellation group participating, if you like, on behalf of someone
mm,
else. So let's say we're working with this example that you're talking
mm,
about. Someone's been talking about not getting on with their mom, and I'm kind of part of the group, and I'm like, okay, well, I can be your mom.
mm,
I'll step in and be your mom. And actually, yeah, there's a kind of there's this healing frequency for kind of everybody who's
yeah,
in the
yeah,
kind of, I mean, I suppose in a sense for people listening who trying to get a sense of it, it's kind of like role play in a sense. You're like, okay, I'm going to wear the hat of being the mom, and you're going to be the
yeah,
dad, and you're going to be the brother and the thing. And it's just I don't I think I find it really hard for us to actually explain how it kind of works because it's
yeah.
so
Because
it's
you're not being given lines, and you're not being asked to think how it might be, which is why I stopped the story. So nobody's allowed to say, "Well, my mum's a complete narcissist," because then if you're standing in for the mum and you go, "Actually, I really love my daughter, and I'm desperate to help, but I'm so overwhelmed by what's going on behind me that I can barely see her." That's a really different picture. And then you can go, okay, let's turn around. Let's look at what's going on with your mother, heal that, do say the things that need to be said. And then at that point, they can turn around and go, wow, my beautiful daughter, there you are. Oh, it's so lovely to see you. And, you know,
Yeah. So do you find we've had two examples here of we've had an example of really we're talking about like we've had talk about siblings, we're talking
mm,
about mother daughters.
mm.
What other uh common examples might we find these threads that need healing that show up in our lives?
I mean, one that everybody loves is around our relationship to money.
Oh, yes. That
And
sounds good.
it's a beautiful thing to represent money because so not what we think it is. It's so different.
Ah.
But excuse me, I did a talk recently on money constellations, and I was just thinking, well, okay, how is it? Because, either money comes to us easily and we spend it easily, money comes to us easily, but we hold on to it because of sort of fear or whatever, or money doesn't come to us, or it sort of tries to, but we push it away. So I was looking at these sort of different ways we can operate about
Mm.
money. And I was just thinking about myself. It's like, okay, so I can earn money, but I have enough to live on, but I never have enough to save. So I don't have a pension. So it's sort of like it's enough, but it's not, the abundance that I would like and am absolutely capable of manifesting. And so I thought just this was purely an exercise within me. I thought, what's going on with me? Where's the guilt? Where's the atoning? This isn't a principle of atoning, like money's trying to come to me and I'm somehow pushing it away. And I tracked it to a great great grandfather, something like that. On my mother's side, through my grandmother's line, they made money in cotton mills and
Mm.
they owned cotton mills in Manchester. And as I said earlier, my first job was a buyer for Marks and Spencer's. There was some kind of rag trade link even in there. My sister became a twin sister, a fashion photographer. One of her kids, did a fashion degree. This is sort of even, a few generations down, our creativity sort of seems to veer towards textiles. And I realized that I had this incredible guilt and shame about having money. Basically, my family profited. I got an education. I was privileged because of other people's suffering, because those kids working in the cotton mills and those men and women worked for such terrible wages and were so exploited. And the kids were made to kind of work under dangerous machines. They lost fingers and toes in those machines because the kids could get in and tie the cotton thread together while the machine was still going. And they were just terribly exploited, not to mention even that cotton was grown by slaves. So there was so much sort of shame in there that I was not allowing myself to receive money. And a lot of us take up these kind of atoning positions for our ancestors, but actually it doesn't help. It doesn't serve anybody. So the movement in a constellation is to say, what can I do now? Because I can't make it better for those families then.
Yeah.
And me just trying to send money away doesn't make a difference. So I said to myself, what I absolutely will not do is consciously partake in any kind of modern day textile slavery. So I will not buy clothes from Shein or Primark or anywhere that, you just look at it and think, how could you possibly sell that for £2.50? That's not right.
Yeah.
And I just thought, okay, that's what I can do for now. I will buy secondhand designer from charity shops, anything where I can, make a difference with how I spend my money and
Yeah.
not support this. And then bring into my mind those ancestors. And for one, not to take the judgy position, like for one, go, I'm really grateful for what you've given me. I'm grateful for the education. I'm grateful to have grown up in a really stable home where there was food on the table always and a warm house and all those incredible gifts that I've received. But this lies with you. This
Mm.
guilt of having exploited people is not mine to carry. And I hand that back to you for you to carry. And even though this was a sort of just like an inner meditation rather than actually doing a constellation, but that was enough to really surprisingly shift my earnings. Just in a sort of 1 year, like doing my tax the year after was like, oh goodness, wow, that's quite a surprise.
Well, that's amazing. I've never actually kind of thought that about using constellation for money, but I think that's a really very kind of really important practice, particularly because many people listening to this will be therapists, will
Mm,
practitioners, and don't know why, but there's that kind of vibe of the story, I should say, of the perhaps holistic practitioner who doesn't really necessarily get the compensation that
mm,
maybe the financial banker does, or the person who's in
yeah.
their white collar job. So it's interesting, isn't it, the money story that we all carry. And yeah, of course, that does come from kind of the way we've been shaped by the generations above us. So yeah, I think everyone I think everyone listening is going to go like into the money story now and have a look at that. So that's an amazing example from your own personal practice. So thank you so much. Um, so I was going to say, so what, mm, I think I wanted to dive in really. I was going to ask you about sort of your personal practices. So I love the way that you've shared there that actually you were just kind of using the kind of idea of constellation and your knowledge around it to kind of look at a pattern and be curious and kind of question, like you said, in terms of a meditation, rather than doing a full-on constellation with kind of getting the figures out and and kind of mapping it out really. But are there any other practices that you do on a regular basis which kind of keep you aware and connected, whether it's to the earth or to your spirit guides, or what other practices do you have now that you could maybe share with us?
One of the simplest things, and it's so, so easy that, it's slightly embarrassing to say because it's kind of really obvious, but also really easy not to do it, is just every morning when I stick my head out of the door, hello, sky. Imagine, feel my feet on the ground, put my attention into my feet, feel the way they're connecting to the ground, even if it's like a concrete pavement. Imagining roots going down into the earth, taking a breath, bringing that energy up into my body. So feeling a connection with the earth, just imagining something, light from the top of my head up to the sky. And for me, just something about being held just as a little ant with this huge earth beneath me, the sky above, but kind of being held in that, what would you call it? That sort of yin yang symbol at the center of something. Um, that for me is really helpful just to, it's a sort of good morning to my body as well as a good morning to the earth. And it's a good morning to my spirit as well as a good morning to the sky. And that just like, it's like one, 30 seconds, a minute on my doorstep. So not, an hour's drumming in the woods or anything that would be lovely, but just like I don't have the capacity for that daily. Um, so that's a really simple little thing that I do when I go out. If I can possibly get my shoes off, I mean, I wear Birkenstock clogs, so I can get my shoes off really easily. Then I'll find a piece of grass to stand in to do that exercise. Um,
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Yeah. And what about connecting? Do you have any practices? Obviously, constellation work involves, our ancestors and our greater ancestors. Do you have any practices that you do that kind of honor the ancestors or kind of are a nod to your particular ancestors?
mm. There's something that I can't say I do. It's something I want to do, and I think this is
That's
like
super honest. I love it. I love it. I love that.
it's something I really want to do, but I've had a very chaotic life in the last 18 months with
Mm.
my husband dying and not really knowing where I was going to live or how everything was going to be. So I've been bouncing around the world a bit. But I have the people in place to do it. And this was one of my teachers, Dan van Kampenhout, that suggested it. And I think it's absolutely lovely. And that is, so I'm interested in family history. So I do know the names of my, quite a good range of ancestors. And actually, I think just mapping out, as far as you can tell, because of course there are lies that are told,
Yeah.
but as far as you can tell, the names of your parents, and for some people that might be the first point, and then the names of your grandparents and the names of your great grandparents. So you just know who they are. Because often in constellations work, I'll say, I'll be setting up if it's some big systemic thing, and I might be setting up a whole big family. And I can go, when they go, the grandparents, I can go Moira and Merrick and Marjorie and Rob. And then I can do the next line, and I know their names. And I think when we can name something, we can have a much more profound connection to it. Just like when you can name the difference between an oak tree and an ash tree, you can have a stronger relationship with each of those trees. So, firstly, find the names of your ancestors. I think and everybody that does, I'm on a lot of, family ancestry kind of groups. And
Yeah.
what people find is when you start concentrating on one ancestor, they start trying to talk back to you. It's like we wake them up. When I'd find somebody finally tracked down a name on a family tree doing the research, and I would get it and I would go, hello, Elizabeth Chadwick. I would say her name out loud. Really nice to meet you at last and find that you're my great, 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 great grandmother. So I'd sort of say it out loud and I could feel a little kind of energetic ripple. It's just something because, of course, these people's DNA is in us and something
Mm.
that was connecting me back. And I'm sure scientists will explain it in 50 years' time. They'll go, oh, Did they not realize you could do this? Well, it's so obvious because this gene on the DNA sequence matches. But I can feel something goes on. And then it's almost like they try and nudge you to it. I mean, it started off with my grandfather. I knew his name. I didn't know where he was born. My dad thought he was born in India. Did tons of research, couldn't find him anywhere on any record. Went to the British Registry Office, in London. Didn't know what year he was born, anything. First book I picked out, first thing I opened, first book I opened, first page it opened, first name I saw was his. So
Love it.
somebody was nudging me, then I could order his birth certificate, and then I could discover that he was born in Folkestone. Who knew? I'd had a boyfriend that I'd go to Folkestone every Sunday with for years. Um,
Yeah.
so that's a sort of start. But then what my teacher Dan did, which I think is beautiful, is he said, get some little like wooden models. I use them for constellations now. Get them
Mm.
and and then, paint them, because he's an artist as well, paint them. And as you're holding it, you can say their name. So, as it might have been my grandfather, okay, Robert McPherson, this is your granddaughter, and I'm just going to be painting this. And, as you do it, it can be like a meditation of connection. I know you were a soldier, and I believe that I got my bravery through you from that. And, this, I really admire the fact that you did this, and this was so noble. And da, da, da. So, and then, you can put it down, and then the next day you can choose another one, or next week or whatever. But I think that I got all these little wooden characters to do it, and I really want to do that so that I've got my own little constellation characters for all of my line, or as far back as I can tell. So
Oh, that is the most beautiful practice. I really hope you're going to run a workshop involving getting everyone to paint one ancestor or something, because that's so beautiful, isn't it? It sounds very a lovely way of honoring them and acknowledging that bond, even though, like you say, we can't really explain it, can we? We know that we are, we've got them in the DNA, and
mm,
we kind of know now that there's cellular memory there. But I think it is quite exciting that in the years to come we're going to probably know a little bit more about
mm,
how our, because I kind of view us as kind of like computers really, and we're kind of the next generation, aren't we? That
with the latest upgrade.
we are the yeah, exactly. So I'm wondering, I mean, that's a beautiful and very I'm going to do that too. In fact, what I did when I started doing constellation, I made, you get that clay, the air dries, like air
Mm,
dried clay. I made lots of little figures. But then what's actually happened since is because I sort of shoved them in the back of the cupboard because I had to move, something. All the heads have fallen off. I
mm,
kind of think that's quite, I'm like, what does that mean? Okay, I think it means I need to start again. But what would you say? I know that there'll be some people listening who are who feel like this real disconnect with their ancestors, or because there's been some trauma, some kind of almost like something that repulses them. They think, you know
yeah.
what, I don't want to honor my ancestors. That's so toxic. I need to move away. And obviously, really in the for healing, we need to kind of bring everything together. So
Mm.
how would you go about it, and what would you say to people who feel like that?
It's a really tough one. And I can see that it sort of harms our souls somewhere
Hmm.
when we reject what we're made of.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And but I totally get that for some people they've had such horrific upbringings,
Mm.
and they've had parents that have been very harmful and created such difficulties that to go, yes, you need to bow to your mother, go on, bow to your mother, is just you know
Mm.
absolutely beyond them.
Mm.
And in a I see this, of course, a lot in a constellation because nobody does this work, because everything's sunny and rosy. Um, so sometimes it will just be a kind of, if it's like a meditation of imagining your mother in front of you and allowing her to be as far away in your imagination or as close as feels safe,
Mm.
and just or father or whatever it is, to kind of look them in the eye and say, you gave birth to me,
Mm,
and that was enough. Because sometimes, all our parents, luckily not for me, I was very blessed with, great fortune, but for some people, really, it was as much as their parents could do as give them life.
mm,
And of course, we all want those sort of fairy tale, well, the good fairy tale mothers, that's kind of idealized mother, not the wicked ones, but, we want that, we yearn for that, perfect love. But, our parents are human. And I think we can only get that sort of perfect love from the earth, that unconditional love.
mm,
Um, but just to, if we can get to a place of going, well, you gave me life and I take my life from you,
mm.
then at least, we can allow, at least if we can allow life to flow, that's that's enough. But
Mm.
if we're just going, no, she's terrible and I reject everything about her, that sort of it does have it does cause problems when we're sort of rejecting.
Yeah, because it's it's where we're from, it's what we're made of. It's like you say,
Mm,
the life sort of source, the life
yeah,
force from which we come. So,
mm,
that makes total sense. That's really beautiful. And what I'm thinking of too is if you're what if you don't really know your birth mom? I mean, I guess if you're adopted, do you and obviously you will have had hopefully been brought up by parents who are non-biological parents
mm,
but would have been caring for
mm.
you. So do you, when you do these constellations, I'm assuming you kind of assign caregivers, and do you kind of have this space for biological parents in those? I mean, I don't know, I'm just asking
Yeah, lots of people
kind of.
do kind of will ring me up and say, but I don't know my parents' names, so I
Uh-huh.
can't do constellations. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
absolutely, that doesn't matter because your body knows who your parents
Yeah.
are.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Mm.
so we can set up, and that is a really, I mean, there's a really disproportionate amount of adopted people that work in the, or, are in this constellations world because because of course they're more cut off than anybody from their connection to source in that way, or, um, so you can choose, if you're in a constellation and you choose somebody to represent your mother, it can be a really beautifully healing thing. It could be like really the first time you've looked into your mother's eyes, and it's lovely, lovely work for that. Um,
Yeah, I could just feel
mm,
that, like just feel it in
mm,
my heart too.
mm,
So, thank you. Thanks for sharing all that, Emma. I want to actually talk about the book now because this is how
mm.
we're connected. So tell us about the book, who it's for, what inspired it, and what can people find in the book?
Um, I suspect it will be picked up by lots of people like you and me that are interested in this field, but who I really hope finds it are, I know lots of sort of young people in their 20s that are really struggling. They're sort of some of my kids' friends or my niece or nephew's friends that come into my orbit that will sort of take me aside and say, just wanted to ask a little bit about what this means or what I could do about the other, or and I know that there's sort of, I mean, therapy is so expensive and of kind of, you know, it's slow working, isn't it? I mean, it's a sort of investment that's a bit much for young people to kind of commit to 3 months of therapy or something like that and forming a really good therapeutic relationship. And there's lots that we can do ourselves, lots of really nurturing practices. I think the world is so unbelievably crazy. And for the young people that have been brought up with the first, so the 30-year-olds are the ones that grew up kind of going into senior school and playing on computers in their breaks. And the 20-year-olds were born absolutely with their parents with phones. And all of them, I think, have been increasingly disconnected from nature
Yeah.
and in an increasingly fragmented society without the safety of being able to come home and be children at home because they were getting text messages and, they were in constant contact, couldn't switch off from school. More and more of us, of course, working, and I don't want to, but just in that kind of, so like maybe going to childminders earlier, you know, in a public environment, which is kind of tiring, isn't it? It's really nice to get home to and shut our own bedroom door. And so there's just levels, layers and layers and layers of stress that these young people have got. And so many of them are missing a kind of really solid foundation, something they can fall back into to resource themselves. And so those are the ones that I really want to support. Because there's just some most extraordinarily wise and fabulous young people kind of growing up now that know stuff that took us, you know, 3 times as long to discover, but that are kind of so anxious they can't leave the house as well. So those are the ones I hope to find it.
And how did you decide what was going to go in the book? The kind of resources and the people and the
Well,
places.
I was to be completely honest, I had this sort of grand vision, and my publishers, Wild Things Publishing, who do, all kinds of books, kind of quirkier nature connection type things from wild swimming to wild walks. They were going, oh no, you can't do sacred sites because we've got a book on sacred sites. Oh no, you can't do a book on this because we've got one called Magical Britain. So you can't do any of that territory. And then I was like, okay, but at least we can put in sacred trees. No, 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 we've got a book coming out on sacred trees of Britain. So it really was like just, you know, I had practitioners, process work, practices that you can do as
Mm,
my remit because I
yeah.
wanted to make it like, 10 books, of course, not one. So I started off with my teachers
Mm.
and the people I'd learnt from, and then I'd ring them up and go, "Who do you recommend?" And they go, "Oh, so and so and so." You go, "Oh, yes, I'd forgotten about her." "Oh, yes. Oh, I didn't know him." So it sort of spread out like that, sort of just a network of people. Of course, I'm freaking out now that there's going to be some really, you know, important people in this field that haven't been mentioned. And, I am so sorry for all of those people that that is true, because I know there will be very many of you
Mm.
because there's lots that, a lot of people are working secretly. They're down a dirt track. They're doing the most beautiful work, but they're only known by, how people will come up and say, "Oh, have you ever worked with so and so? Oh, she's incredible. I'll give you her number. You'd love her. She'd be great, but don't give it to everybody because I don't want everybody knowing about her
Yeah.
because I won't be able to book a session." But so lots of that, so I tried to use that network of people.
That's like you're making me think of fungi now, like that mycelial network of how it's all kind of a little bit underneath and these little lights that light up and signposts that light the way. Yeah, I'm super excited for the book coming out, and I'm honored and excited that I'm included in the work here in the garden space and with the plants here. The retreat space that we have here is included in it too. So thanks so much for that. And I really look forward to, seeing where I can go next and who I can work with next too, from looking at the book. So have you got any other books in the pipeline, or are you, was this one enough?
Oh gosh, no. I've got three. I just had lunch before meeting you with a friend who's got 3 books coming out this year, and he's been writing
Oh,
for 20 years. So we just talked books and launch parties and all that kind of stuff. And he asked the same question, and I've just come back from a big trip to Egypt. I lived in Egypt as a child, and I've always
oh,
been deeply connected to the sort of Egyptian pantheon. And I was like, yeah, I've got this. And I started sort of describing it. It's like, yeah, you're definitely onto something. So that's one thing. Um,
oh, well, that would be enough for me. I think people listening have heard me say this before. I've just got this thing I keep saying to my husband, I want to go to ancient Egypt. And he looks at me and he says, "Hey, you can't go to ancient Egypt. It is modern Egypt today." And I'm like, no, 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 I'm going to go to ancient Egypt. I've got this like
Yeah, you can.
I've got a calling somehow, and I'll get to ancient Egypt one day.
Yeah, you can. You can totally. I definitely went to ancient Egypt. I mean, it had they've had to dig down quite a lot to find it. Lots of it
Uh-huh.
was, a temple, whole temples underground with
Mm.
houses on top of them. So they've
Oh,
had to dig down to get to ancient Egypt, but it is there under the current Egypt. So you
there
can.
you go. That's where I'm headed. So tell us about France then. What happens at your place in France?
Yeah, I have a retreat center in the Bordeaux-ish region. It's about an hour
Hmm.
from Bordeaux. And I set it up because my husband taught something called the Hoffman process and was away teaching that all the time. And I didn't like it and I wanted to be home more. And so I thought, if I have a retreat center, then he can work from home. It's quite a long way round, but um, I did. And I have a lovely place. And he taught, we used to teach Hoffman retreats there. And also he did couples work. So we did lots of couples workshops. I don't feel able to continue that work myself. It sort of
Yeah.
worked really well as a two-person thing that could discuss relationships, in an honest way. Um,
Would you run constellation workshops there, or is it just for
Absolutely, I would
couples?
really love to do a sort of 3 day. My teacher did a 3 day work, used to do 3 day workshops. She only ever does occasional 1 days, but there's something that really beautiful that happens when you do it for 3 days, and you can
Mm.
really, our energies can settle and our intuition can rise so much that everybody is in this extraordinary field that can just know stuff and see stuff, and it's really beautiful. And we do shamanic retreats or shamanic themed retreats. I'm starting a new transpersonal coaching training school. So if people want to train to be transpersonal coaches, so including things like constellations, shamanic practice, Enneagram. So my two business partners, she teaches yoga, flower essences, and another whole that side that I don't. And so we'll be running stuff for that out there too. So I've got new people that will come and do things with me. And some people come and do their own stuff there too. So there's other people that I like come and run a yoga retreat or
Yeah.
music or art or things like that.
Oh, beautiful. Well, I'll make sure I'll put all the links to all your offerings below. But is
Oh,
there anything
thank
else
you.
you'd like to share? What are you excited about right now? Coming into the summer, uh,
It's
2020.
that I'm excited for the rain to stop and so that I can be outside more. Just that's like sun. Honestly, this feels such a tough winter.
Yeah.
I just got back from this group I go to work with in Germany every year. And normally when we start a few days of work and everybody's so excited because we do incredible stuff, it's sort of CPD for everybody. And this week, or last week, and you go and say hi, and there's a German psychotherapist and a Dutch constellator and a Russian shaman and all kinds of, without exception, every single person I said, "How are you doing?" They said, "Well, I'm alive," or "as good as can be expected," or "Okay." And I think all of us have had just such tough 6 months. Um, but it feels like something's moving. I hope that's true. The
Yeah.
astrologers know all about this. So excited for light, really.
Light and warmth.
Mm.
So where can everyone find you? Do you want to just you can share your links or where the socials where everyone can find you. And like I said, all the links will be below and your
Yeah, my
link.
website, emmapruen.com, that's probably the easiest place to start off. That's got everything else.
Okay. And I'll put a link there so everyone can see the book and get the book
Thank you.
too.
Oh, yeah,
So
that would be really nice. Yes, buy my book, please. That would be really nice.
well, they're going to find so much in there about kind of where to go, what to do, who to do some beautiful work with. So
Mm,
thanks
so
so
many.
much, Emma. It's been really amazing to hear about constellation and find out a little bit more about what that really means. And yeah, and I'd love everyone to know, anyone who's listening, let us know in the comments, your the favorite practice that Emma shared, or maybe something that you would like to know, what would call you to kind of create constellation with your family. That would be really interesting to know. So
And please, if you know somebody brilliant, if you buy the book and you know somebody brilliant that I've left out, please send me their name. That would be really helpful. If you just go, I cannot believe she left this person out. They're fabulous. Tell me who they are, and then we can put them in next time.
that's great. Yeah. Thanks, Emma. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Bye.